Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street in the Small Business Lenders Hope and Grow Fraud Friday edition. Lance Sexton, good to see you. Delaney Sexton, good to see you. Shout out to the Arkansas State Ozarks College Special Professor Sexton.
University of the Ozarks, Bob, and they are all very excited to hear more about our friend Kris Roglieri.
Lance is doing a great job. He has a class at College of the Ozarks, and he is preparing them, exposing them to a potential career in SBA lending. And Lance, I think that is a phenomenal class, and I know you're going into basics, so good for you. Sounds like a great hands-on class for aspiring SBA lending professionals.
Bob, just to let everybody on the call know, they are now on page 450 of the SOP 5010 7.1 in their reading assignments.
I'm glad I'm not in your class. Hang in there, gang. It gets better.
Yeah.
Wait until the end. Hey, Delaney, Kris Roglieri update. What do we got?
I'm happy to be back. We've got some new news. It just came out yesterday. It appears that his New York home has been raided for a second time. This happened earlier this month on March 5th. There's not a lot of details on what all they took, but they did say that they took another 7 cars. I have the list here: a Lamborghini, a Porsche, 2 Ferraris, and 3 Mercedes-Benz. This is added to the more than dozen cars that were taken the last time.
How many cars does a man need?
I'm wondering the same thing.
What else did they find in his house?
That is all they revealed for this raid. They did say that they found an assault rifle and some ammo that I am not very knowledgeable of, but that left him with 2 felony state weapons charges. And then in the Virginia Beach house, they found some drugs. So Miss Humphrey was charged with 1 felony drug possession charge.
Have we verified that they've been charged? I checked on the federal criminal indictments. They have not been charged criminally, either one of those 2 individuals.
Not for fraud.
Yeah, but I know the Times-Union is doing a great job on covering this. I don't have the reporter's name, but shout out to him. He's doing a great job on covering it. So I have not seen documentation that they've been officially charged with criminal accounts. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt on that. But it's been reported they have found weapons at his, and they're classifying it as a mansion, $1.2 million house, and that is there in the picture, as well as the charges in Virginia Beach. So let's be fair to Kris and Kim.
I do have a quote from the Times-Union that I thought would be nice to add. It is unusual for details of the early stages of a federal investigation to be disclosed to the public, but Roglieri's attorneys simultaneously are sharing specifics about the searches as they catalog his assets and build their case in his bankruptcy bid. And I will throw in this last sentence because I thought it was kind of fun. Roglieri hopes the seized items will someday be returned.
I hope they are too. I would hope this is all. I would hope that would happen. I would hope that this is there's a mistake, and the $90 million is in an account somewhere that they haven't found, and that he can go back to normal. I would hope that as well. Go ahead, Liz.
Oh, absolutely. This case amazes me, and I have a lot of hope that they do find something that helps to prove that he didn't do these things. But oh my gosh, Bob, we're talking about 17 very expensive cars.
And the receiver, I listened to the recording. What's interesting, Lance, I know you've been in this game for a long time, Delaney is entering it. Now they are recording certain courts, the judge will allow the proceedings to be recorded on audio. So this was a March 6th hearing. In the past, the court reporter would shorthand it or stem, whatever the term is, then they would transcribe it, and then it would be posted. Now you can access it immediately. And I listened to that, and it's very clear. The receiver commented again, hey, $90 million is missing, and he thinks it's a Ponzi-type scheme.
Well, it's going to be interesting to continue to follow this, Bob, because I don't know where it could be that they couldn't find it. So I'm certainly hopeful that they get this all figured out. But I do believe we're going to have more interesting news that happens. I mean, I was talking to Delaney comparing this to Bankser. This is a lot bigger.
Well, this
in terms,
definitely. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting moving parts. Hey, Delaney, go ahead. What else have you got for us?
I have another case we've been following for a little while.
Is that Broward County? Let's hold off on that. Do you have anything else, then, Kris, that you want to share with us?
There's nothing new right now, but I will continue to monitor and let you guys know if there's anything else.
We got this information from a letter from Chris's attorney. As you said, Delaney, and the Times Union reported this, it is unusual, all the information we're getting about FBI raids, etc., coming from his attorneys. The FBI is notoriously closed-lip on releasing that information. They do backdoor it. We've gotten a lot of information off the record, so they do get it out in their way when they want to get it out. But in this case, all this information is coming from the attorney. So when we read these reports, we have to understand this is the attorney representing him. So that is, we don't know if the FBI really did that. We do suspect the cars are gone. I mean, that's not going to be, that's happening. But this is the basis of Chris's and Prime Capital's defense. Their defense is they got scammed themselves by a company called Barone Capital. Barone Capital made available to Prime Capital $1 billion with a B credit facility that they could utilize for Prime Capital's borrowers. Now, I received an email last week where I was criticized that I can't get the name right. Well, in my defense, they changed the names. It was Prime Capital, and then there was an involuntary bankruptcy. Then they quickly changed the name to Prime Capital Lending. So I'm going to let that criticism roll off my back. We'll call it Prime. There are a number of different entities. In this particular situation, according to Chris's attorneys, so again, you have to context, but this is what they're representing. That in 2022, Prime wired Barone $20 million to secure this facility. And as you can see, they wired a couple more in 2023. What's interesting in this timeline, and here I'll let Lance jump in, is on 10/26/22, Barone got the money, and then on 10/27, they immediately wired $3.4 million to themselves. It was supposed to go to another party, which there's more and more friends of friends that are involved in this. But we do know, according to the attorney alleges that in 10/28, Barone bought a Ferrari, and the same day they bought a Rolls Royce. Lance, I bought cars before. I've never bought two cars in one day.
Now, Bob, that's something I've not experienced as well. Certainly, if I did buy two cars, it would not be a Ferrari or Rolls Royce because, I always pride myself, Bob. I have a decent balance sheet. I have a crystal clean credit report, but I'm not sure they would approve me for a Ferrari and Rolls Royce. But
on the same day.
So this Barone Capital, I looked them up, Bob. If this is from their LinkedIn page, it said they're industry disruptors using an assortment of traditional and, more importantly, non-traditional investment vehicles to deploy assets under management. That's an interesting description of that company.
Lance, did you also find out where their corporate offices are?
Looks like Miami.
No, it is a UPS store with a mailbox drop in Atlanta. That is their corporate office. Or their Atlanta office.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the Google map on them right now. Oh, it is.
Yeah. See a big UPS there.
Pretty easy. Google map those bad boys.
Fact check me. That way to go, Lance. Fact check me in real time. I love it. Glad I got that one right. Hey,
you did.
But after, by the way, Lance or Delaney, I'll let you jump in here. Can you explain the difference, Delaney, on why the Ferrari was 281,000 and the Rolls Royce was 283,000? Any significance to those numbers?
I think we've learned on this show I'm not very knowledgeable about cars, sports.
Neither am I. That's why I'm punting to you.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and kick this one off to my dad and see if he has some insight.
There we go, Lance.
Well, it is kind of interesting that the prices are so close to one another, but guys, I apologize. I've been involved in seizures of a number of vehicles in the last several years, working with various agencies, but typical seizure that I see is a Volkswagen Passat or, a Honda Accord or something. I've not had a Rolls Royce or a Ferrari yet.
Most expensive car you've liquidated, dollar amount?
I had a Jaguar at one of the bank closings that I liquidated. It was a bank officer's car. I just want to say this, and this is kind of funny. I slowly liquidated it.
All right, let's move on.
No, I'm just playing. We got an opportunity to drive some of the bank cars for a few days before we sold them. I sold it at auction, and slowly means I sold it in 3 or 4 days. But I got to drive a Jaguar for a couple days, guys.
All right, well, let that go. November 1, there was a suite at Atlantic Hawks game. Of course, the obligatory private jet. And as you can see, there were other Barone wires themselves, 5.9 million and down the line. And so the defense that the attorney is raising is that Kris and Prime Capital were scammed themselves. And there are emails in there, and that makes it, that's the defense. But the question is, again, where's the $90 million? This just happened 3 months ago, Lance and Delaney. And this came from I'll give you the name. It was Renville Egg Farm in Renville, Minnesota, for a construction loan. It was a $100 million project. Lance, I'm not a farmer, but a $100 million egg farm, is that a big operation?
That is a very sizable, Bob. I've had some agricultural lending in my SBA history. I did a lot of poultry farms. The largest ag loan I ever did was $2.5 million, and that was a very large poultry farming operation. So that's a huge ag farm.
Well, they wired the money to Prime Capital Venture. That is the name of it. It was wired to Prime Commercial Lending, LLC, but then the funds went to Prime Capital Ventures, and then they were transferred to PCL. And anyway, what the receiver is saying, what happened with that $5 million is that $400,000 immediately went to this law firm for a criminal defense retainer, which is an interesting use of proceeds, Lance.
Yeah.
And then other uses included, of course, the obligatory $84,000 to risk aficionado. I don't know if this is before or after the $2 million Richard Mille watch, which, by the way, as you all know, I am terrible when it comes to pop culture, but there was something about Zuckerberg was looking at a watch, and he saw it, said, hey, what type of watch is that? And I knew what the answer was before they said it. I knew it was a Richard Mille. So, Delaney, because of you, I am getting involved. I'm getting up to speed on my pop culture awareness.
Well, I would, again, guys, on my other screen, I pulled up Wrist Aficionado.
Oh, look at you.
On their webpage, they have watches featured on their webpage starting at $340,000. I'm sorry, they do have one Rolex, which a Daytona for $31,500.
Okay, so he went bargain basement on this time around, and of course $100,000 for private airplane travel. So that is his defense that he got ripped off by Barone. The receiver has seized Barone Capital's funds. The attorneys showed statements, copies of statements of fraudulent bank statements representing the money was there, and obviously that money is part of the $90 million the receiver is attempting to track down. But Lance, in terms of frauds that we've covered over the years, this is by far more egregious. We covered the bank serve fraud, but that fraud is minuscule. That was truly about reputation, trying to maintain a profile in an industry. There were certainly not guns and fast cars and other allegations involved. But Lance, in your experience, where does this look like it's going to rank?
Well, in this particular industry, of course, Kris operated both in the small business lending field, but also out of it, obviously, with these large transactions. This is one of the biggest fraud cases I've seen, Bob.
Yeah, and exponentially. Very quickly, Delaney, thank you very much. I know you'll bring us up to date next week, but bring us up to date in Broward County. Broward County, where a number of sheriff deputies were fired for accessing PPP and COVID funds. What's the latest?
So just as a short little recap, there were 17 who were officially indicted, charged back in October. More recently, I believe in February, we had Lieutenant Gonder Jr., who was charged for $168,000 in fraud. And as far as I know, as long as my memory serves me right, this is the first conviction we've seen. Stephanie Smith, who was charged in the original October indictments, she was convicted for 2 PPP loans that totaled $31,000. She said she was a sole proprietor for a basketball training company and Smith Vending. She included false information backed by falsified IRS tax forms. She applied and received forgiveness for both of those.
Oh my gosh. What kills me on PPP fraud like this, guys, is she got 2 $15,000 or $16,000 loans, Bob. We've talked about this over the years in regards to fraud. I am sure her salary as a deputy sheriff at the Broward County Sheriff's Office far exceeded the small amount of money that she got from the PPP loan program. Now she's not going to work in law enforcement probably for the rest of her life, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, it's
As always, I'm pretty curious. She's scheduled to be sentenced May 29th, so here in about 2.5 months. Since this was the first conviction, and since this is such a big case in the media, with these $31,000 loans, and typically they get maybe a couple months, but with her position and how well known this story is, I wonder if they will make somewhat of like a statement or a show of her, or if she'll get similar small sentences.
Well, the fact that they went after her on a relatively small amount in terms of fraud is clearly sending a message that this will not be tolerated, and they will definitely, the prosecutors will definitely want to get the maximum amount of penalty that they can obtain.
Yeah.
As always, I will update you as soon as I hear more about it.
Thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street. One entrepreneur at a time.
Have a great
weekend.